So yeah, I was just in the middle of exercising and I had to stop and make this video. And usually if I don't, then I don't come about. So sometimes they'll come about like this. So embodied enlightenment is not all about joy. And the reason why I'm making this short one is because the short video is because I just talking to somebody about this that through my own personal experience, for about a 2-year period, I was in a state of joy when I reached past that imaginary point of the threshold of realization. And I was in this joyful mode. I mean, I was in a state of bliss. And it lasted for, like I said, about 2 years. And then I crashed. And at that point, many people who go through this, and I've talked to others that like, Meryl, I thought I was there, and then I had this happening, and then all of a sudden it made me think that maybe, again in the mind thinking, that I'm not at all realized or enlightened. And it's just because of why they're describing it, they moved out of that blissful state. That's basically that state, that joy, everything's joy, you're experiencing this joyful way of living now because you move past the suffering of the regular singular identity of being a human and into this joyful state, and that's enlightenment. And from my perspective, and again, truth is personal. So you can't say I have the truth, but you can pull your own experience from my words, and what I'm saying is from me, that I had a personal crash. And crash, wording, go with me here. What it was a grounding. So I was really up there. I was finally at that point where my frequency had risen up. I've come into the kingdom within. There was no more of the mystery, the how, what, when, where, and everything. I was like, yes. At that state, if I could just share this with the world, the joy I'm feeling about myself in moments that are so personal, in times that are so very personal for the individual. And it's amazing how we can articulate it even to share this. And the only reason why I would normally, because this stuff is so personal, it really is. There's a grounding period that happens after that joyful elation period, and that can go on, again, it's an individual happening, so that could last for as long as you, as an individual, will experience, or maybe you don't experience it at all. But I'm just saying, is that it's grounding. And your eyes are open to everything. You don't have the filters. You don't have the filter. You don't have even the identity to the identity of the joyful self, because that's another identity. Wherever we seem to go in this form, it seems to be an identity until you empty out. And you're emptying out. And this is the emptying out and becoming the selfless self. And when you do that, it's almost like right at that point, when you're sitting up in that vibration, you finally came within yourself, and you're like, yes, I arrived. Then there's an opening that happens, because realization is, when it happens, it's realization after realization after realization from there, for eternity, where you fall in love with the self. But the falling in love with the self is falling in love with the shadows and the joyful aspects of the self. So it's all of it. It's all in the awareness. That's realization. That's integration. That's allowing. That's all of it. It's just awareness to, hey, I have these aspects over there that I'm not necessarily engaged to. I'm not going to give my attention to them because I see you over there. Even it could be thoughts. It could be the mind. Not necessarily the other poles of your other parts of your being, but those thoughts that pull at you. I see you. I see the thoughts there. I'm just not going to pay attention to you right now. Thank you. Sometimes it's not so easy, and then you just go with it, and you see it there, and you sit in your big stinking pile of mess. Embodied enlightenment is not at all what you think it is, because that's mental, and that's holding on to an identity. Everyone's enlightened, they just don't realize it. Everyone, even if they're not choosing this. It's happening to the entire human race, it's happening to everything. Moving up on frequency. Ascension is just moving the frequencies up on a certain level, up to the higher ways of existing and being. It's a state of being. When you say Christ consciousness or Buddha consciousness, it's a state of existing through senses and sensations instead of being engaged with the mind and the emotions. So embodiment is bringing all of who you are, the darkness and the light, the shadows and the light. The shadows, some of them don't want to go into the light. That's what makes them shadows. They just want to be recognized and looked at. So we acknowledge them. Even if you can't say, hey, namaste, we acknowledge them. They're there. And then that's it. And after that, life can be boring. You don't have the filter on. You start realizing a lot of stuff. It's my personal experience. Everything's a mess. Some things you can't say, because if it gets out there in certain views and certain realities, certain people will take what you're saying and take it and skew it and try to analyze it and say, no, that's not. I couldn't just throw something out there like, you know what? The human race is just terrible. It's an awful form. It's not our natural form. It's very uncomfortable. It's a constant state of anxiety. That's the condition. You can sit there and do what you need to set up the body, like I do. I exercise because it makes me feel better. And because movement, especially with the frequencies that are higher now, the higher the frequencies on the planet, it's important for the body to move, because everything's moving. You have to move. The more stagnant you get, you will get sick, and it will be uncomfortable, and that's what's also happening. Embodiment is with the body. I always like to use the metaphor of like taking a piece of coal and then having it turn into a diamond in a less than a 24-hour period. It can be painful for the body, and we call them ascension symptoms. Maybe some people will catch this video and watch it, and they're not so advanced as far as coming into who they are and what's being said here. It's an awakening, and it's such a personal thing that happens on a personal level within. When you come and you have people inside of you, that's crazy. That's like the psychosis. That's a part of psychology. They find the crazy. But every human being talks to themselves in their head. Every human being is neurotic. Every human being suffers with this constant anxiety, angst, because they're stuck like bottled water in a form. And once you come into your realization, you start realizing really everything. It's very edgy here in this dimension, in this reality. There's a lot of edge to it. It's softening as we move, and as this great shift is well on its way. But it's edgy. And when you still are doing this for the very first time, the body has to go through the adjustments. And this is why I offer my stillness sessions, and I'll have one tomorrow, Saturday, and it'll be a little 1 p.m. New York time. On July 11th. I will offer them every now and then when I feel and sense, my higher self senses that we do this thing and offer this about. They are free. Donations are accepted. A lot of things happen within those sessions because it allows you the space to come into what is being said here. Even if you're visiting for just a short while, and then go back to what your experiences needs to be, in that state of being you need to be in until you're not there anymore. Playing with duality, all of the sufferings, the drama, the game, all of that. Embodied enlightenment is not all about being in joy, because when you come into it and you finally ground that knowing, you start, again, you will be with the shadows, and it's not really pleasant to be here. It can be very painful, extremely painful. Emotionally, it's terrible, but at the same time, you have this love for yourself that's not that joy, like happy, yay. You're going to stay in that state of happiness, because that's just a state of mind. It's not something to stay in all the time. This place, you can wear many hats and be many ways, and you don't have to be one way or another. I also want to say it too, is embodied enlightenment is that, well, it's also called organic transhumanism, where you're becoming more than human, but you're doing it organically by awareness of the inside, the kingdom within, your consciousness. Allowing your consciousness to come and speak on behalf of the human sometimes. That's how I'm able to do the work that I do. It's wearing the many hats and not holding back. Sometimes you can, when anger pops up, you're more angry than you would have before with your singular identity, before you cross the threshold into realization. You get more angry. And you can either express it or not. It's not about, I finally harnessed my emotions and now I can sit in the lotus position and be all peaceful with myself, and yay. If you do, good for you. And that's not what's being said here. There's no judgment. What's being presented here is that if you want to realize, and this really is not being said by a lot, I get this a lot with my clients. Meryl, I wish I found you allowing was much different. I thought embodiment was much different. So this is what's being presented here. This is the first time I'm actually making a message like this. They'll come more and more, but as I'm comfortable more expressing this, and again, expressing it is a miracle. Being able to articulate this like this is amazing. Deep breath with that. So you don't hold back your expressions. What we do is we get stuck in, oh my gosh, how I feel when I'm alone, with my alone time, with myself. It's like complete, that. Like, I wish I could share this with the whole world or those I love, and they don't understand because it's such a personal experience. It's such a direct revelation that A, it's not your responsibility, nor do you have to. Yes, it would be nice, of course. And that's what we do. That's why the Muriel put out the book Soulship, and why that's all these opportunities to read about consciousness is being presented, because it allows you to check in with yourself. You have something out there, someone already kind of went along a little bit and did this, like myself, and then I can present to you, hey, if I made this video, say 3 years ago, back in 17, it would have been joy, which I do actually have some of the Coming into Mastery series that I was at that point in a state of massive joy. But now is the grounding. I've been doing it for a while now. Is the grounding it, and this is the embodiment. I had a checkout point where I stopped drinking water, and it went on for a little bit. I was happy. I wasn't intentionally, consciously trying to check out. I wasn't trying to kill myself. There wasn't any of that. No, because I already came in. There was no issues. There's no more struggles or efforts or problems anymore, even though there is to the human. We get this. We understand this when you come into this. So it's not like I was denying myself. I was just checking out. And I had a friend come up to me, and this was back in 16, and it was the summer of 16, July, and I could have easily checked out at that point. But I stayed because, well, and I have many things that have come after that. And that's when I started writing all my books. I've written 5 books in 3 years, or published them or wrote them, and I continued to do that. And where 2 or more gather. So as masters, we come into this, we're gathering together and making these creations together, and they're coming at faster than the speed of light, because when you come into embodiment, you realize that the speed of light is the slowest speed. And quantum reality is that anything that's possible will manifest. So that's the quantum space. That's the endless potentials and possibilities. However, go with me here. When it's the coming back, it's that, okay, I'm going to drink water now, I'm going to eat the food, I'm going to start coming back in my body, gain more weight, because I was down to nothing at that point, and I'll do this thing. And mind you, I'm still going through the time and space. The body's catching up, again, with the frequencies, because I've taken the piece of coal, turning it into a diamond. The physical body is carbon. And the consciousness that's speaking right now is of light, and it's of a higher frequency. And so the integration is the acknowledgement, the awareness that it's all there, even the shadows and the darkness of you, all of it, all of it. The sexuality of who you are, the sensuality, all of it, all of that, without anything attached to it. That's why I did my project with a friend of mine, Sexual Energies at the Root of the Human, is so that was basically to present the source and the foundation of our actions, and how we present ourselves out into the world. What are we joyful of? Is it a certain body part we like? Is it our bodies in general? Is it the things, the physical? Is it that? Is we joyful because we realize that, we're never ending and no beginning? That's fine. But there's this sense of self through all of this. And so when you're emptying out, it can feel very painful. And so it's not so joyful. And so you're sitting there with a bunch of people, and my colleagues and friends, I can't join half those discussions really now, and I know a lot of you can agree with this. That's why you come to me in this space, or you join my discussion spaces, because I offer that which is not really being offered now, because people are afraid that, like, oh, you're being too dark, or you're depressing, and I'm in the state of joy. And what's saying here is that everybody's going to empty out, and everybody's going to ground that. And when it happens, it's not so pretty. And again, I have to say that everybody goes through it differently. You can't say, okay, that's set in stone for you or for whoever. It's just, I'm throwing it out there. And if you resonate with this, it's fine. If you don't, then you wouldn't be listening to it anyway, and you'd probably stop anyway. So I could go on about this. I wanted to keep it short, but here I am at 15 minutes. So tomorrow at the stillness session, check out my website at murielschickman.com. It's on the YouTube video there, description. And just go there and you can sign up. Okay, so it's free. Donations are accepted, and I will talk to you later.